Welcome to the Level Up Wellness Podcast. We're your hosts, Sarah and Steph, two wellness enthusiasts on a mission to explore the cutting edge of health, wellness, and personal growth. From mental health to alternative healing, biohacking, and workplace wellness, we bring you the latest insights from experts who will help you thrive in every area of your life. Tune in each week as we dive deep into the world of wellness and help you find balance, boost your health, and live with purpose. Let's level up your life together. All right. Welcome to the Level Up Podcast. Today we have an absolutely amazing episode, and it's going to be a powerful story of, we have Amie Ellis here, and the story of trauma, overcoming that trauma, and just resilience of a mother's love and figuring out how to do things when life throws you unexpected curveballs, right? So we're here with Steph and Sarah Montana, and excited to get started.
Yeah,
so,
thank you for having me, you guys.
Yes, Amie,
I'm excited.
thank you so much.
I get excited to share our story.
Yes. Why don't you, Steph, I know that you know Amie more than I do, so maybe just kind of introduce how you guys know each other and what inspired you to ask her to be on the podcast.
So I've known Amie since, it was like
years.
Vasa.
Yeah.
Like back in my days of like fitness, and I always like looked up to her. She always had a tribe of women that would like follow her around. I'm like, I need to know this lady. But you did spin classes, and you're a woman's woman.
Yeah, I do.
Like you are a hype girl for women.
Yeah.
And so I've always looked up to her that way. And then I found out like what you had gone through, and then we went to dinner with you and your husband, and just hearing your story and like how you've powered through and come out on top, and like you're just so inspiring, like to women in general, but as a mom too. Yeah. So you were one of my first people. Like I was like, I need her on the podcast. You're just so inspiring. So
well, thank you for having me, and I think that's actually I think that will be a good lead-in, because I think that's one of the things that was the most pivotal and important in our story, is that the women in my life, we saved my daughter. Mm-hmm. It was, and we've been told many times as we've sat at conferences and events, a lot of people will look at our table, and I have this table of strong women, and they're just like, these women are they're a badass crew and a tribe. And it's really true. We would not have found my daughter if it weren't for the women in my life. Every single woman that loves me and that is in a part of my life, our lives stopped. And so I think I'll just kind of break down the main part, our story. Yeah. But it can get very long and complicated. So if you guys don't understand, feel free to ask me questions. Right. So it was 7 years ago. My daughter was 17, and she went missing for over a month and was a victim of human sex trafficking. And many people, their first question is, how did this happen? Was she just kidnapped off the street? And in our story, in many stories, that is what happens. Mm-hmm. Girls and boys are just kidnapped, but our story, in many other stories, it's a little bit different, and ours fit in that category. And what happened, in my opinion, where it started was, my little girl was 12 years old, and she was didn't have a phone, didn't have Facebook, and I got a call from another mom one day, and she said, Amie, I just saw something on Facebook that is so disturbing about your daughter. And I'm like, what could be on Facebook about my 12-year-old daughter?
Now, this is your 12-year-old, not the 17-year-old?
No.
Or was this when the 17-year-old was 12?
Yes, this was when my daughter...
when she was 12.
12 years old. And she said, okay, we'll get on Facebook, and it's on this girl's page. And so I got on there, and it said the top 10 sluttiest girls of a school here in southern Utah. And my daughter was number one. And she was 12 years old. Whew. And the second that happened, I watched my little girl's kind of soul just kind of start drying up and dying. So of course I rushed into the school. We took care of it at the school, with the school. and the parents, but the damage had been done. And we found out that it had been up for quite a while, for months. And after that, my daughter just really struggled with she had no friends, not one girlfriend, not one person to rely on it. And of course we were all there. I have 7 kids, so she had 6 other siblings, and we're like, we'll be your best friends, No 12-year-old girl, no middle school girl wants to be friends with their parents and their siblings, For sure. And so her whole high school career was challenged. She just had no friends. She would come home all the time and just be like, Mom, I'm unlovable. And I'm like, that is not the case. That's like, you're so lovable. Yeah. You're so good at everything. You're so beautiful. You have so many talents. And so in our case, it really started there, because the vulnerable groups of kids are the kids that feel a little bit different. They're looking for any kind of validation. For sure. And so skip forward, she came to me when she was 17, and she's like, Mom, I am not thriving here. And of course I knew that this was the truth because I was her mom and I had watched it over the years. And so I knew that she was really, really struggling, and she just was not doing well, had horrible grades, could not keep her mental health. She just was struggling. She was miserable. And so her dad lived up in Logan, and she had been with me her entire life, but I really felt like, okay, if you feel like you can have like a new start, then let's do this. Yeah, and so she decided to move up there, and she had been there only about a month, not very long. And my daughter, she's very, very sassy, very, very opinionated, very, yeah. She gets that from me. She gets that from me. And the thing about her, she loved her family so much. She would respond almost instantly if any of her siblings, and she's particularly close with my youngest son, Devin, and they were just 2 peas in a pod, just best friends. And so if he ever reached out to her, text her, call her, whatever, she would instantly respond. And so with any of us, she was like that. And she loved her family. And she was the kind of girl that even if she was like at a party, or she was like doing something that she maybe shouldn't be doing, she would call. She was honest about everything. And she'd be like, Mom, I'm actually at a party, but I'm safe. Be
Which
home or whatever.
Huge,
and that speaks highly of you as a mom too. That she's...
Well, I think it's because we were so bonded from her whole high school career. We were going through this. Our whole family was going through this, misery. So anyways, I had been a little worried because I hadn't heard from her for about a day, and we had all been messaging her. We're like, what's going on? She's not responding. So I got a call from somebody, and they said, I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in my car, and we were about to open up a gym here in Southern Utah, the Max. And it was our first gym, and we were like months away from opening. And I was sitting in the car, and I got a call, and it was a girl, and she said, hey, I wanted to let you know that I lost your daughter in Las Vegas. And I was like, what? I was like, I'm like, we live an hour and a half, an hour, 45 minutes. Why didn't you call me? And so I started freaking out instantly. I'm like, she wasn't responding. That was never a good sign. I knew something was not right.
When you say, sorry to interrupt you, but when you say a girl, was this like a teenager or a woman?
So it came out that there was 2 adults and one person that was 18.
Okay.
So they actually all were, there was 3 adults. Yeah.
Okay.
And she was 17. And so come to find out, what had happened is she had met some people. She got a little job while she was up there, and she had met some people, and they had said, let's go. We really want to go on an adventure to Las Vegas. And she was starved for any kind of peer connection. And so this little girl went, no clothes, no makeup, no money, no phone. And she went to Las Vegas, and that was the start of the worst time in our lives for her and for our family. So, like I said, the story has so many facts and so many details. But we'll kind of skip forward. We were about so many things were different about our case that made it successful, which is makes my heart really break because there are so many people that don't have the resources that we had. And one thing about our family is I had been in the fitness industry I've been in the fitness industry for 25 years, and my job, I'm social. My job is forming and helping people, and yes, and relationships have always been the most important thing to me, and so we were really lucky because we had so many connections and people that were willing to help us, and so we, from the second she went missing, our lives stopped. And my whole family, both my sisters moved into my home. My mom moved into my home. We turned my office into a base camp. We just decided, my best friends were involved. My two best friends, one of my best friends is like an investigative. She's like a PI. She doesn't have the license, but she is she's freak skilled, of nature when it comes to. And so her life stopped. She literally, I don't think she left her phone or her computer the entire time that my daughter was missing. Wow. And my sisters too. Like we had so many people. One of my sisters has two best friends that they are amazing at organizing things. My sister is in the data world, so she knew how to create a timeline. So we all went to work, and this comes back to the women. There is one picture of all of us women, a lot of us women, sitting at my office table, and it was like we had a long table, and I talk to my sisters about this all the time. Every time we see that picture, I just am blown away because every single one of us women, we just decided we are not gonna lose this girl. Mm-hmm. Like, they all knew that my life would be over if we didn't find, and I knew that my life would be over. I could not survive without my child, and I couldn't even breathe. I had to tell myself, like, breathe, take a breath, and so we went crazy and started investigating everything. And I think that is one reason that we found my daughter, because we've actually been told by FBI, every expert that we have gotten to know and talked to said that the only reason why you found your daughter is because she has a family that loves her and supports her and that would not stop, and she has an army of people. Which also kind of leads into another thing that was super, super traumatic and taught me an important lesson. You know, our community, we have an amazing community. But I also learned that there are so many people in this world that actually don't want the best for you, and that are very, very cruel. But on the other side, I realized that there are far more good people that want to, share love and help. And so about 3 weeks into searching for my daughter, we had a big family meeting, and our leads were kind of drying up, and we had exhausted all of our different leads, and we felt like they were still going somewhere, but also we would come to some dead ends and be like, I don't know if this is the right way. And that's a really scary place to be, because you don't want, I was scared that people have to get back to real life. They
lives have to go on.
And so what's going to happen? Is my daughter's case, is my daughter going to be lost? And it really is like you're looking for one little child in a sea of millions of people, and so if you don't have those leads, you're really in a bad place. And so we came to a place where, like, what is our next move? We don't want to wait for the police and the FBI. When we were when we were in our case, the FBI was working on 6,000 other cases. 6,000 other cases. And so how do you don't have enough time to put towards my child. And I understand that there's so many other people's child, but this is my child. Right. And I can't do that. And so we had a family meeting, and we just decided what is our next move. And my sister said, I want everybody that has really just gotten into an Amber Alert, I want you to like tell us. And so all of our family and all of us were sitting there, and I don't think I had ever pushed into an Amber Alert.
Like actively
I've gotten the Amber
it,
Alert, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so sad. And I, I feel for the people. But have I ever pushed in it and looked at the pictures, looked at the suspect, looked at, what I was supposed to look at? And I had never done that. And so we decided that we needed to do something different. And like I said, we're very, very lucky. And we have a couple of friends that are world-renowned videographers and photographers. And so we reached out to them, and they said, get into the studio. And so we took our family and our closest friends, and we went into the studio, and I begged my daughter. I'm like, fight, we're coming for you. We will not stop until we have you. But just fight, and we're coming for you. And so we were really, really lucky because within a day it had millions of views. Oh, wow. It had been shared 500,000 times.
Oh my goodness.
We attached a tip line to this video. My best friend who I was telling you about, she was actually in charge of the tip line. And so we started getting tips, and at about this same time, we had been told by numerous people, be very, very careful about allowing any organizations to come in and help you. You have to be very careful because some organizations will come in, they'll ask for lots of money. You're desperate to find your child, and so you will pay it. And so we've run into a lot of survivors, families that have,
no success,
gotten
depleted resources,
so much debt, to find their daughter or their child. And so during this time, my husband had come to me, and he said, I got a message from from an organization who they think that they can help. And I was just so leery of all these different organizations, and we also were being bombarded by the media at this point, and not had a good experience.
How long had she been gone at this point?
So this was about at the same time. It was about the same time. 3 or 4 weeks. Okay.
And which is an eternity.
It was it was a lifetime. Yeah. It was a lifetime. I think one story that pops into my head always, because I remember feeling this desperation, is my husband told me that we would literally lay in bed at night, and he said the sounds that I would wail all night. All night. He's like, the sounds that would come out of your body was just like a wounded animal. And he's like, I didn't know how to help you, how to like comfort you, but we would just try to grab like the little bit of sleep that we could, and he would wrap his arms around me. And I remember one night he told me, he's like, I don't know if we're gonna survive this, but we're gonna sure as hell try. Whatever happens, we're gonna try to survive this. And so it was just a nightmare. So at this time, my husband had come home and said one day, he was like, I really feel good about this organization. And at this point, my mind was exhausted, and I really had to rely on the people that I loved the most and that I trusted. And so I just really told him, I'm like, babe, I honestly, I don't know how to make this decision. So if you feel like this is a good move, then let's do it. Yeah. Right. And he said, I really, really do. So we signed the liability papers, and that's when CERT Ministries, and they're the nonprofit that help rescue victims of human sex trafficking. And so they came into the story, And they really were there with us every second from then on. And so to kind of push in the most simplest terms, we started getting a lot of tips from this video that we posted, and they were actually really horrible, traumatic tips. I've never understood why people have time to be cruel. And so a lot of tips that we were getting were like, we saw your daughter dead on the side of the road. Like, you can stop looking for her. Things like that.
Gosh, yeah.
Or, you know, your daughter deserved it. She was a slut. Just literally things like that. Yeah. And but we started getting this. We got a tip that said, "Hey, I think I've seen this girl, and she's never allowed to go out by herself. She's escorted out by these guys." And we were so exhausted of tips at this point. We just kind of, you know, threw it aside, and we're like, whatever. We'll get to it. But this one particular tipster was pretty persistent, and so he called a couple more times. And at this point, my friend who was in charge of the tip line, she came to me and she's like, I think there's something to this. Actually, I feel something about this call. And so we're like, okay, let's start looking into it. At this point, we had narrowed where we thought that she was to a few cities, and only us, our family, the FBI, and CERT knew about this location. And so he called back and he said, I'm pretty sure I've seen this girl. She has a different hair color, but I'm pretty sure that it's this girl. And he said, I'm in, and said the city that we really had narrowed into. And at that point, my friend called me and she's like, this is it. I feel like this is it. She's like, get together.
Rally the
troops together.
Yeah.
And at this point, we called CERT, who was based in California. And so they geared up, and and their story is really interesting too, because when I say when they gear up, they geared up. They have dogs. I've
been there.
Yes.
I've watched them gear up.
So it is
bone chilling.
Yeah, it's an event.
Oh, like
it is something that is.
And like this peace comes over you, like the wives start crying. Yeah. Because you don't know if they're going to come back. Yeah. Wow.
So, and you know, there's a necessity of having all of these different. There's a necessity of having the police officers. There's a necessity of having the FBI. There's a necessity of having groups like this, you know, because, how do I say this? Police are bound by laws.
100%.
And, you know, there's certain organizations that are not quite so bound and tied up by laws. And so we let them know. They geared up. They're about an hour away. And we jumped in our car, and there was a few moments that we didn't know. We're like, do we even do this? Like, what happens if this does not turn out and it's once again a false, you know, thing? And I remember that my friend, she just looked at me and she's like, I feel like this is needed. You need to go get in the car. And so I said, you guys have to come with me. So we had two different vehicles, and we all gathered in the car, and we just started heading there. And it's really amazing. The police in this area, it's the worst area in LA County. And the police honestly don't really even like to go there. And they had been very leery of ever helping CERT. And so CERT, Rudy, who's the head of CERT, he kind of decided, I feel like I need to reach out to them. And so they got there, they got eyes on, and they called the police department, and the police department for some reason said, yeah, come in and tell us the story, tell us what's going on. So they went in, and they decided to help us. The police department decided to help us. And so it was a process from that point, but when we got to the point where we were ready to go, you know, grab her. And
they got eyes on her.
They got
And
they got eyes.
So they knew she was there.
They weren't sure. They got eyes on the place.
Like
Yeah. And so they had kind of watched the in and out and kind of, you know, figured out, yeah, this is pretty
sketch.
Yeah, we're in the right place. And so they went in, and the police officers had her picture on their phone, and they went in and they said, are you Sarah? And she didn't know what was happening. She was kind of afraid that if she's like, are they being arrested for drugs? Am I going to be given, like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And so she said, no, take me out. So they took her out, and they said, you're Sarah. And she said, I'm Sarah.
Aww.
I am Sarah. And
Have you
she
seen
said,
the body
I
cams?
prayed. No, yes, we have. We actually have seen a few little things. Not yeah. But she said, I prayed every second of every day that my family would find me, and we found her.
Chills. Huh? Wow. Yeah.
So
very. Yeah. Very intense.
But I think I'll never forget. And so what the process is kind of interesting, is that so we got there, and, you know, when victims are found, they have to kind of go into a debriefing with the FBI and with the police department. And so when we got there, we were led to this little tiny room, and we had to wait overnight, really.
Oh my God.
We waited for hours and hours and hours. And I'll never forget, when they were warning me, the FBI was telling me, hey, listen, you need to be prepared. When victims are found, many times they are brainwashed, they are scared, they don't know what's happening, they're drugged up. And she's like, many times they won't want to see their families. They actually will push against their families. I remember she told me, she's like, she might like hit you. You like, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, is my daughter going to hit me? Yeah. Like, is she going to be not excited to see me? And so as soon as the victims are debriefed, and which is hours and hours and hours and hours, then they have to go and do the medical side. So then they're taken to the hospital, which is also hours and hours and hours. And so I remember that there was just a few of us waiting in this room, and we were just waiting, wondering, like, what are we gonna see when we see her? Like, what are we walking into? Yes. Yeah. And I remember it was a couple hours, pretty close to when we finally got to see her, but the FBI agent came in, and she's like, I just talked to Sarah, and she asked me if I had met her mom yet. Her badass mom. Oh. her badass Spartan running mom. And I knew at that second, I'm like, this baby, this child is so excited to see me. And so I remember she left for a couple more hours, and then she came walking in. She's like, she's ready to see you. And so they brought her in, and we literally just jumped into each other's arms. Like, our eyes locked on each other, and I was like, that is my baby. That is my baby.
Where's the tissue?
Yeah, dang, I didn't get that ready.
But it was really crazy. I think back about it now, because we must have been a sight to see, because we screamed. At one point, we jumped up on the couch. I remember we were just...
Was this at the hospital?
This was in, at the bottom of the hospital. We were just sitting in this little tiny room. It was smaller than this room. And we were just waiting, and we just jumped on the couch, and we rolling around and just screaming. And then she said, where's Toddley, which is my husband, which is her stepdad, who's just, been in her life, since she was a little tiny girl. And so we did it again. Yeah. She jumped in his arms, and they screamed and hugged and rolled. And then she saw Rudy, who she'd never met before. And I don't know if they had told her, But I remember at one point she was like, I was wondering if you if you were like a bum or something. She's like, somebody told me that you were like in charge of like finding me. And so they and you know, they're very careful because this is a victim of sexual offenses. And so they have a protocol that they are, you know, they it's very, very technical of how they behave when they find these victims.
Right.
And, he was a man, and you know, so they talked, but very friendly, and she's like, thank you so much for finding me. And so it was just it was a moment that will be etched in my mind, because I had my arms around my baby, and I just told her, I'm like, you're safe. We're going
I bet you were
home.
like, I'm never letting you out of my side again.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so I look back now, and my life would be completely different if we had not found her. And I'll also never forget, you know, we stayed for a couple days, because the next day we also, I don't know if it was called a debriefing or no. So it was actually it was at a different location. I'm actually not quite sure. I cannot remember exactly what it was, but we had to meet with more police officers and FBI agents. And so we stayed for a couple days. And at this time, all of her siblings, so all my other kids were, you know, just waiting. And I'll also never forget, you know, as we're driving home, and, you know, we just all were just so excited to be in the same space. Yeah. And so we got home, and she walked in the house, and all of her siblings all of my other babies were just like, our life had almost ended, you know, they were so glad that she was safe and happy. And so it was amazing. It was amazing. And so here we are, you know, I still can't even believe that was real life. Like, you know, I just never knew in my wildest dreams that I would have a missing child, number one, and then number two, be a victim of human sex trafficking. That just didn't even cross my mind. I was one of those people that thought that happened in other countries. You know, I never knew that was something that happened here until it became our life. And so so that's the basic breakdown of our story. So,
and there's so many details of like all the tips and all the dead ends that you got to that point.
Yes.
That you aren't telling, but I know some of them.
Yes.
You know, and you were just a powerhouse, and like she said, you're just a badass mom, and she knew you were behind it all. Yeah. You know.
Well, I don't know if she knew that, but she assumed. She was just like, my mom. I know that my mom, if she's on this, like she's gonna find me. You know, there are, like you said, there's just so many tips, and I think that's one hard thing, especially if you're going through the court system, which was such a traumatic experience. Going through the justice system was just almost equally traumatic. There's just so many things that were equally traumatic, like recovering victims, and the recovery process is so painful and so intense, and there's so many things to it. But one interesting thing that I realized is that these victims, these survivors, I remember, I'll never forget Sarah telling me, she's like, Mom, I remember so many details, but I can't tell you the timeline of when they happened. She's like, all of it seems like one long, miserable, like horrendous day. And I think that's one of the problems with the court system, is that they get these survivors and these victims in court, and it is one big ball of trauma. It is all one big ball of memories and things that happen to them. But when you try to break it down into a timeline, it's very, very difficult for them.
Well, they probably disassociate, and
they do, to survive.
You know, like again, your body has that fight or flight, you know, nervous system that's trying to protect yourself, and so they probably do a lot of trying to separate themselves. So I'm sure it is difficult to kind of. Right. And then there's the reintroduction of trauma when you're kind of trying to unpack and tell a story and things like that.
Absolutely.
Sure,
and also many of them are drugged up, and so that you add that into, which was a part of our case, and so it was hard. We had a lot of months of getting her clean, which was really challenging and hard, and it's one of the things that makes me the most angry, because not only do I have this child of mine that has pretty much every single tough issue, sexual issues, trust issues, connecting issues, but now she had a drug issue, and I'm really so thankful because she was able to heal from that and move forward from that the best possible situation that you can. And so but it was one aspect that just pissed me off, because I'm like, not only did you ruin, you've added all these issues to my baby's life, but now we have
that it's not just like, oh, we're done, she's found.
Yeah.
I think that probably is one of the biggest things. It's not, you're not at the end of the journey.
No.
If you are lucky enough to get that outcome, it's still, you have so much to do. And I'm sure that as a parent and a mother and all those things, navigating what the right course of action and what things to do to help her process and to help her feel supported and to help her learn to trust again and all of those things was wildly overwhelming.
It is. It's the second war, we call it, because it's just, we've ended the first war of recovering her, rescuing her, and then we set into the next battles, and they are rough. Right. They are very rough, and many survivors end up going back into the game because I remember her telling me, she's like, Mom, I feel like the only things I'm good at now are sex and drugs. And I'm just like, you are good at so many other things, and don't think that. We will pull you through that. And so and then all through that, finding her and rescuing her, we had a lot of trouble because we were destroyed and crucified in the media. And that was really hard, healing from that. When we recovered her, I just learned so many important lessons going through this. And one is just how important your home is, and how important your safe space is. I knew it. Yeah. Your safe people, your trusted people. And I remember knowing that fact in my brain, but not in my heart until that happened. And there were so many days that we couldn't even go to the grocery store without people saying, and wondering.
Are you okay to share?
So one thing, and so what happened, and this is one of, I have not talked a lot about this. It has taken me this long to get here and to get ready to talk about this particular story. And so many people said, you should have fought this right after this happened, but I didn't have the strength. I did not. I was trying to heal.
Mode.
I was trying to heal my daughter. I was trying to heal my family. And I just did not have the strength. But what happened is our case was across 3 states. So it was Utah, Nevada, and California. And we had multiple different, police agencies, and the FBI helping us or involved in our case. And she had gone missing from Las Vegas. And so we needed, there was one point where we had a Dropbox of all the information that we accumulated. And when I say that we went all in, we went all in. We were in Las Vegas every other day. We had video, pictures of different drug dealers, different pimps, the traffickers. We knew where all of these different people worked at. We knew what time they worked. We knew shifts. We found out. We literally had videos. We were there every other day for days on end. And so we had accumulated all this information in a Dropbox. And I remember we reached out to Las Vegas Metro, and they were the absolute worst. They were, and I say this, I love police officers. You know, like I said, I've trained for 25 years now. I've trained the SWAT team here in Southern Utah. I've worked with multiple police officers, and I love them. I love my men and my women police officers. But, you know, I say this, two things can be true at the same time. And I get scared to talk about this because going up against, you know, the machine, the police machine is actually really scary. However, Las Vegas Metro were horrible. They were inappropriate. They were wrong. They treated us horribly. So what happened is we reached out to them. We had a little bit of correspondence with them, and we didn't get a lot of help from them from the very beginning. But then we were in Las Vegas, we were getting all this info, we had all this information, and then we just needed the law behind us. And so we decided to go in. It was Super Bowl weekend, which, if you know anything about human sex trafficking, Super Bowl weekend is the biggest weekend for it of the entire year. And so which is really sad because it's going on, you know, all the time, but that is really a focused, because the big sports games, that's when a lot of men and, you know, people come into town, and so that's when it all goes down. And so we had been told if she's out on the streets, if she's working, whatever the case, she's going to be there at that time. So we were there, and we're like, we finally need to go in and talk to the police. And so we called to start with, and when we called, Vice usually deals with sexual crimes and things like that. Vice was closed on Super Bowl weekend. We were like, what is going on? Why would Vice be closed on Super Bowl weekend? Come to find out later, there was some kind of political thing going on where they didn't want to have this is what we've been told, a lot of sexual arrests at that time, which is shady in itself. But anyways, so we called. They said that Vice was closed. Even the dispatcher was like, I don't know why Vice is closed. That's strange. So we decided, it was my two best friends and then my two younger sisters, and we're like, we just have to go in and you know, show them our information and ask if they'll help us. And so we went in, and my two younger sisters and I were the ones that went in, and from the very start we went in, and they were horrible. They were rude. They made a joke about our case. Looking back at it now, when I've talked to my sisters, I'm like, I wonder if they just looked at these three women. If I would have brought a man in, I think it would have been a little bit different. But which is also in itself is ridiculous.
These basket case women.
Yes, they're these crazy women. And so we went in, they made a joke about our case, they were rude, they pretty much told us, like, you guys just need to go get a PI. We're like, we are the PIs, and we found all the information. We have a drop case box of information. And so I'll never forget, we walked out that day, and I collapsed in the parking lot because I was at desperation. I was like, this was the last resort. We needed their help so desperately, and we were not heard in any way. And I just collapsed in the parking lot, and I did not know where to go next. And it was interesting because it popped into my head. I understood why there were riots that started, because people are desperate. We've been telling you this. We've been telling you things, and we are desperate for help. And when I was not heard in any way. And so I try to now to, you know, talk with police, and there has to be some kind of connection between the police and the families. And even if they were not planning and they didn't want to help in any way, at least taking some information and acting like you
just so you
in
feel
any
like
way
you were doing your best.
Then I think it would have made a world of difference. But so what happened after that is our case started getting traction, and the casinos started getting a lot of, particularly one that my daughter went missing from. And so they started getting a lot of flack. and the police started getting a lot of flack. And so
like from the communities,
from I think just a lot on the online. Social, community. And I think it was getting a little hot in the kitchen. So the Las Vegas Metro sent out a representative. They had like a news briefing thing and pretty much said nothing wrong had happened in Las Vegas. And at that point, the media went crazy and destroyed my family, particularly me and my daughter, who was a minor at the time. Wow. They dug up. They just were horrible. And so people, and it was really hard because our people, our own friends that we knew in our community, they were reposting these articles that were just a bunch of lies. And then the people online were so cruel and so mean, and there was a point that everybody told me, they're like, you're not allowed to get online. Honestly, just don't do not look online. And so I wasn't at a place where I could even handle that, but there was a ton of, the media was just a really, really traumatic, crazy part. My kids were being bullied at school. They would walk down the halls and other kids would scream, your sister is a slut. She deserved what she got. Your family is out to, just get attention. It was really horrible. And I remember one of my sons coming to me and he's like, one of his best closest friends had reshared a story that was saying pretty much that we were lying, and it just crushed him. Wow. It crushed him. It crushed our entire family.
You weren't lying.
My son?
Right.
Yeah. He knows
you're not lying.
Our family knew what we were going through and what we were experiencing, but to see like some of your closest people like repost things that were just so.
Yeah. But that's when you like realize like who your true friends are. Yeah. Who your true circle is.
In situations like that. Yeah. The true people. And there was so many kind people as well, that reached out and said, we back you. We know you guys. But it was rough. Sure. It creates a lot of hardships, moving forward, because you're just so mistrustful of people. And it's interesting because I used to be the kind of person, I was so touching and loving, and you would just never walk into a room without getting a hug from me, or my friends always make fun of me because I'm always just very touchy, or grabbing your arm like this, or scratching your back and doing things like that. And it was one of the things that were one of my favorite things about myself. But I realized that really changed me, and I really had a hard time being at that place again. Yeah. Like, it just was
like you kind of pulled back,
like letting someone else into your space.
I really changed. And the great thing now is I'm kind of circling back, and I'm really coming back to that person again. But it's taken these 7 years to really circle back. And even now, I'm still a little less, but I really am circling back in it, and it feels so good because it's feeling like I'm coming back to who I know. For sure. And that's actually another traumatic thing about it is that for me, there was Amie before this happened and Amie after, and combining the two to feel like normal and feel like me has been really challenging, because there's some things that I loved about myself, but I'm changed. And so coming to realization of like, how do I fit all these pieces together in myself, in Amie, that feels okay and feels normal and feels like I can move forward, so it's been really, really interesting, an interesting journey, but I'm just so thankful. My daughter was rescued, and our family is a strong family, and we just love each other so hard every day now. And and my daughter, she's doing well. She has hard days, but we have so many more good days than hard days, and so that's a complete switch of how we were for a long time. And she's a mama now, and so watching her be a mama is just literally the greatest, one of my greatest joys, because she's the best little mom. Yeah. And she loves my little Mimi. Her name's Mila, my little granddaughter. We call her Mimi, and she is the light of our lives, really.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So let's kind of unpack the healing journey. You know, obviously we have a wellness podcast, and so, you know, there are hard things in life. Obviously, I have no idea what it's like to experience what you have, but I feel like we all like have our own traumas and our own things in our own way. And so, like, how did you like go about that healing journey? How did you prioritize yourself and like just kind of navigating that all of like figuring out that you can't pour from an empty cup, and like just kind of starting that healing journey?
I think the most important lesson and concept that we realized is that we all have to give each other grace, because each one of us in our family was traumatized in a totally different way. For instance, you know, my kids were bullied at school. That was very traumatic for them. Of course, my daughter is dealing with a whole bunch of traumatized things. You know, my husband was traumatized. He was the one that had to come home and search for her on Backpage. You know, his daughter that was being posted on a sexual site, you know, and hoping that he didn't find her, but kind of hoping that he found her so that we could find her, you know. And this was my baby, my child. I was traumatized in that way. And so we had, obviously, when she was recovered, therapists were involved, and we know we've done pretty much every kind of therapy, you know, modality that you can think of. And so somewhere along the lines we picked up, you really just have to give each other grace to heal in the way that you need to heal. And so we all really took a nice big deep breath so many times and just realized, okay, we cannot, because that person is not healing in the way that we are healing. We really just have to take a breath. And we also realized that we're just going to love. We're going to love. Love really does win every single time, you know. And so there were so many times that were a little frustrating, you know. I wasn't quite sure on how to navigate that person, how that child needed me in that moment. But I had I don't know where I came up with this, but I'm like, just take a nice big deep breath. Go, you need to have thinking time. That is another thing. I needed time to just think, you know, and I think to be successful in anything in life, you need to set aside time to just think. And life is so crazy now, you know. American living is just insane. It's just from here to here to here to here, you know. And so I realized that I need to escape for a minute, and I just need to go think. And so when I would do that, and many times it was going to the gym, you know, and I would put my headphones in and I would solve these problems in my mind, and I would have clarification, and I would just be like, you know, I think this is the best way. And I knew just from being in the wellness, you know, genre for so long, I knew that there was some fundamental truths to being healthy and healing, and one of them is moving your body. So there was a time, you know, pretty quickly after we rescued her, that we got together as a family and we hiked Angel's Landing, and we got to the top and we screamed at the top of our lungs, you know, and we just like, we're gonna give this to the universe, and we're gonna pray for, you know, some goodness, you know, to some clarification to come back to us. And so that was one thing that I knew fundamentally we had to keep moving. Our bodies are made to move, and that just releases so much, you know, healing energy in itself. And so we stayed busy. We moved a lot. We went to the gym. We hiked. We did things like that, and being outdoors. You know, you will never. I get so mad when people are like, "Stay out of the sun completely." You know, never be in the sun. You have to be in the sun. You have to let the sun touch your face at least once a day. Doesn't have to be for a long period of time, but you have to let that sun
for sure
fill your soul, you know. And so healing is a hard journey. Getting through trauma can be very, very overwhelming. But I think it's so important to go back to simplicity and just the basics.
Yeah.
We really do have everything that we need to heal and to be happy in us already. You know, we have that God energy, whether you're a religious person or not. We have that universe energy. We have that God energy. We just have to be slow enough and calm enough and silent enough and simple enough to really, you know, work those basic, you know,
I love how you said that of just like the one or two things of like sometimes when you have so much going on in your life, you're like, I can't do it all. I can't, you know, do all the things that I'm supposed to be doing to become healthy or to heal or to do all those things. But when you are in this dark space of like, okay, I'm going to move my body every day.
Yes.
I'm going to go outside and see the sun every day.
Yeah.
Like just put one foot in front of the other. But there are some of those things that you're choosing to do that are releasing different hormones and different, you know, things to your brain that's saying like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And that is needed.
Right. Like from a nurse point of view, like trauma and stress like causes sympathetic nervous dysregulation, hormone dysfunction. Your immune system gets shut down. Like for me, when I've experienced like stress and trauma, like I stop eating. Yeah. And nutrition, you know, like you lose hair. Yeah. You get gut issues.
It's so hard because that your stress reaction is not to eat. However, whole foods are going to be such a big process in the healing journey. Right. It is. It can get into a cycle that's really damaging, you know.
And then if you just push all of that away and you focus on the basics, getting outside, being active and eating whole foods, you're going to feel so much better.
Yeah. You're going to have more clarity. I think having clarity is so important because I think when your mind is so chaotic and which happens when you've gone through trauma, it's hard to clarify what I need to do. When you've got a really foggy brain, you know, and that's exactly what happened. You know, Steph's known me for so long. I am a badass in the gym. Like I've trained for so long, and I've almost, I think, overtrained in my career, and I've taught 20 classes a week. You know, so it's hard to do that. But trauma is what it did to my body. First of all, I went through adrenal fatigue, where I couldn't. The thought of moving in any way was miserable to me. Like I couldn't even think about getting through a class. It was overwhelming to me. And I finally, and that made me feel guilty. And I was like, what is happening to me? Like I am such a go-getter. And so that happened. And then I turned 40 that contributed to that. And my hormones changed. And it was just, my body went through. And it was so interesting because through that whole month, over a month, I don't think I ate. We lived on coffee. Yeah. We lived on coffee. It was just like nonstop coffee so that we could stay awake. I didn't want to miss a call. Yeah. I couldn't, you know, we were just trying to find all this information. And so then what happened is when we recovered her, shortly after that, what did I do? I started overeating to cover that trauma and to, you know, I'm an emotional eater. Apparently, I didn't know this, but you know, I realized that I was. Yeah, and so then I overdid it, and so then I gained weight that I couldn't get off because I had hormone issues and then I had adrenal fatigue, and so it was just stress really can wreak such havoc on your body, and I really had to simplify things then too. I had to say, Amie, stop. It's okay if you're too tired to work out today. It is okay. You're going to be okay. Your body needs to recover. You need to get sleep, you know, which is really hard for me. Like I'd rather
You're
just
a very active person.
Yes, it was torture for me. And so I just realized like you have to give yourself grace in that too. Like if you can just get to the gym for 10 minutes and that's all that feels good, do that. You know,
and it's okay. To your body and like realize like obviously there's a difference between like being like truly lazy and then like realizing like, oh, your body needs rest. And so I think there's that fine line of like learning that like, you know what your body needs.
Yeah. I think one thing that was really important too is I started telling myself, you're only one woman, you're only one mom, you can only do so much in a day. And so I really got good at the end of the day just being like, you got done with what you got done with today, and it's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. And I laughing is so important too. And so there were so many times that we as a family would just, let's laugh. Let's just do something weird, and you need to laugh to heal and feel those happy moments and happy times. So yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. It's important. It's important to smile. And people are always like, how can you even smile still? Like after everything that you have been through, and how does your daughter still smile? And I think it's because I remember, and I'm constantly telling myself how many things I have in my life to smile for, and smile because of, and
we talked about that, like the victim mentality.
Yeah.
People get stuck in.
They do.
Right.
And you really, I think that there is a time and a place for you to really take some time and feel guilty, feel bad for yourself, and feel all the things, because you deserve that and you are allowed to feel that.
Process the grief.
Yeah, but there is also a time for a time period where it's time to get busy fixing these things and healing these things, and really giving yourself some tough love, and just saying, okay, that's enough. No more being in the pits.
Well, I think it is like a story of resilience in the sense too of like, if you can like pick yourself back up and like realize that you aren't a victim to your story, that like it's just a part of your story, and like now you are going to be able to go on and do things, and you're more empathetic, and you're more compassionate, and you're more aware, and you're spreading information that can help millions of people. And the same for your daughter. There's so many things that you can do with that. And so you're almost allowing them to win if you let that take over. And so it's like, no, like I'm going to show them, like I'm going to do something with this. And now it just gets to be like this propelling factor to the next part of your journey.
Yeah. I think that is a big part of it. From the very start, we all have this, like, you don't know what family you've really effed with. Yeah. We're this is not going to happen on our time. And I think it's so important for people to realize, like, you do have the ability to do so much, and I always am telling families, like, if this, and oh my gosh, God forbid I never want this to happen to any other family or any other child, but if it does, of course, let the authorities know, but do not stop. You have so much more you can do.
Advocate
so
for
much
yourself.
more you can do. Yeah, and I think unless you've learned that, unless you've been told that, you don't know that. You think, okay, I go to the police and then I just wait for them to find her. You just have never been. I don't think a lot of us have been given permission. Like, you
go outside of that.
Go do it. Like, I don't even care if you feel like it's. It feels so awkward and strange and weird, but you have so much power. Go and do it.
I hope this is okay, but I just made the connection when you were saying that of, like, obviously we don't all have that experience of like, oh, we need to go to the police for this. But I thought of it of advocating for yourself when you're going to a doctor.
Yeah.
Of like, you have the power, you know what's going on, you know your body, you know what feels right, you know what feels good. And I think so often you go to, like, the same way that you went to the authorities thinking like, well, this is the path, this is what I'm supposed to do, and you realize this might not be the answer that's going to get me what I want. I think that you can do the same thing with a doctor of like, you go in and they might do a normal lab panel or they might do those things and it's like, oh, well, no, your thyroid is fine, so like you must be imagining this or whatever. And it's like going and realizing that, like, no, you can push back, you can get a second opinion, you can go another route and like see and say like, no, I feel like there's something going on here and I want to explore it more. And I think that so often people need to realize, like, you have that power. Like, you don't have to take this as the word of, you know, and not make yourself a priority.
That is absolutely the truth, you know, and I feel like the medical field is so behind in women's health, particularly. You know, women were not even part of medical like studies until the 1990s.
Right.
You know, and so they're you know, giving people the same thing as men, and that should not be a thing.
Yeah.
You know, so that's really true. I think it's so important. You do have the power. Like, you take your life into your own hands, and say, actually, I know my body. I know my body, and that does not feel right. That doesn't seem right to me. So let's maybe try something else. You know. And I think finding there are many doctors and nurses and, you know, facilities, I think, that are really open to helping you, but, you know, there can be some that you're just kind of pushed through, and that's never a good thing, in my opinion.
So just like cookie cut, you know, traditional medicine, and that's one reason why I'm kind of steered in my own direction. But because I have seen people clear on the other end of holistic health, that do things that are just like, you know,
that's a little cray.
That garlic, you know, ain't gonna fix your problem. But, you know, you probably actually do need a physician, or you do need to go to the hospital. But I just strongly believe in, like,
I think that there's a place, both, you know, for both,
holistic and traditional.
I think that's right.
A lot of people don't know what to ask for when they go into a doctor's office, because they're going to get a certain blood panel, and it's always going to be like kidneys, liver, cholesterol, some hormones. But they're not going to go into micronutrient deficiencies. You know?
Well, and see, that's a problem, because we don't know what to ask for.
Right. And
you know, and then we get these reports back, and we're like, what does this even mean? Right. And then you know, the doctors are not the best at like breaking it all down and saying, okay, this is what this means. This is what this means, you know? And so you're just looking at a graph or, you know, a report that makes absolute no sense to you. Right. So I think that is really important, finding, you know, those people that can really help you and are willing to dig in and
to level up.
Yeah, exactly. Those things. I think we're also realizing in the health and wellness, you know, industry, that people their eyes are being open to a lot more things. You know, we're realizing,
I feel like COVID helped.
Well, and we're realizing our food is a joke. You know, the industry, the food industry, is not the best. You know, our water is not the best for us. We're realizing that, you know, I mean, in my opinion, that the doctors and the medical field is being taught in a certain way, instead of looking, you know, at what the cause of the problem is. They're reacting to a symptom.
Sick care, not health care, always.
Yes. And so I think that so much of the industry is kind of being awakened, which is, I think, is really amazing.
Have you heard like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
Yes. And have you ever listened to Callie and Casey? They're the brother and sister.
Yeah. They're
amazing.
Trying to like wake up America.
Yeah.
Make America healthy again.
Exactly.
You know, like red dyes.
Yeah.
I have
so
app.
bad for your kids.
Oh, I can't.
Is it Yucca?
Yeah.
Yucca. I use it all. Yucca.
It's Yucca. Oh. So you
it is amazing.
You scan whatever you're eating. You just barcode scan it, and it will rate it on a scale of like
don't do it.
Well, so it will be like 95 out of 100, which is really amazing.
Okay.
But it also does certain products. So you can look at lotions, shampoos.
Oh, interesting.
And then it will give a breakdown of the chemicals that are in it.
A lot of them are carcinogenic.
Yeah.
Cancer-causing agents.
Really?
That are in these products. Red dyes, for example. My kids eat red Doritos. Oh, they used to. Red Doritos all the time.
Yeah.
Red dye.
Because kids love that.
Right. But red dye is a carcinogenic.
Yeah.
And it's actually, in other countries, it's completely banned.
I know.
There's a lot of things in our food and our products that are banned in other countries.
So bad. Well, have you heard about the pesticides? So there's 10,000 pesticides that they put on our food that we use here. In other countries, there's only 400.
Yeah. Wow.
Why is this a thing? That is honestly, I feel like that is against humanity.
It is
like
crazy.
I feel like that is treason against humanity. I just think, why is it okay that we're feeding our kids this, and then we're wondering why we do have autism and, you know, ADHD and cancer rates
in
are,
kids
yes,
are just increasing.
And diabetes in kids. Like it used to be like one out of 800, you know, in the 80s or something like that. And then now it's like one out of 5 kids
and if you
has
look
diabetes.
At pictures of people on a beach back in the 80s, like you would rarely see like
or in high schools.
Like rarely see people on the beach that were obese or, you know, and now like it's actually quite opposite. Yeah. You rarely see somebody
that's skinny or a fit
lean or you know. But.
And I think it's hard for so many people. I completely understand. You know, we've been fed this food. Right. We haven't been taught proper ways of like, you know, living. And then it's overwhelming. It is. You know, then you're overweight and you're trying to figure out what can, you know,
there's
help and how
on
live.
Every corner.
Absolutely.
You know, like I'm not hating swig.
we love our
like,
swig.
My strawberry breeze. Sugar free.
I honestly have been to swig probably one time in my entire life. Because I've never been a big soda drinker or anything like that. But it's a thing. We need to do better at teaching, you know, our people. Yeah. How to be healthy and, you know, all of this stuff. And the food industry does need to be responsible to us. And I don't know how that's going to change, but hopefully, hopefully he will do something, and he really has the ability to do something, you know. So.
Well, I just feel like no, you're good. It's great. I feel like that was a great little aside here, but I feel like it's been a wonderful conversation. I would love to hear a little bit more. You know, we were saying that like this is now a part of your story, and you get to like be the author of your own chapter. And so like tell us a little bit about like what you're doing going forward. I know you have a few things coming out soon.
I'm so excited.
And just like, you know, other resources for people to be aware of if, you know, heaven forbid they ever were in this type of a situation. So just kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Well, one thing is I always like to, I am available. I have so many families that reach out to me now. That's so sad to say this, but there has been many families that have had a missing child. Luckily, they're able to be found, and it's a very short period of time. But I'm always available, and I have people reach out all the time, like, what would you suggest? What's my first move? My child hasn't, you know, been seen for 2 days. And I am always available. So you can find me there, but you can also, we have some big events coming up in 2025. We usually will do a Save the Next Girl Boy event once a year where we bring awareness, we bring speakers in, we bring survivors in, we bring lots of knowledge about human sex trafficking and how to prevent it. And so you can go to savethenextgirl.org if you are interested in that movement. But what I'm really excited, and it's taken me, I've been working on this for years and years, but it's finally coming to fruition, is I have created a workbook. It's called the 30-Day Survived Workbook, and it's really to help people. It's a 30-day kind of guide through helping you level up in your healing journey. Okay. And it's been really interesting because I feel like I was made to do this. I feel like now looking back, I was like, some things about trauma, some things that I think will make sense to a lot of people, that they have gone through it, they have felt it, but they haven't quite been able to put their finger on what really was that was upsetting them, or what it was that was really traumatic about that. And so I've really come up with some like kind of fundamentals. And one thing that I realized going through what we went to is going back to the basics is so necessary. And so I really take this Survive workbook and we go back to basics, the things that I know in my soul, down to my bones, are things that can help you heal and help you feel better again, help you smile again. And I think one of the most important things is kind of getting into a routine of doing these things over and over again until you are in a routine. Right. And sometimes you have to force yourself. Yeah. Right. And so this Survive workbook is very, very, simplicity in my mind has always been truth. You know, the most simple things are usually truthful things. And so I've really put in these simple concepts and going really back to the basics of what I've helped people with for 25 years of, getting through things. And, because personal trainers, they honestly become almost your therapist,
right?
Because we talk about, to talk about everything. And so this workbook, obviously it's not therapy. I am not a therapist and this is not therapy, but it's kind of like step 2. I always suggest go to therapy, kind of start that first step in your healing journey, and let the therapist kind of help you through there. But this is kind of like how do you put that into practice now? Okay. So you've gone to therapy. What's move 2?
Right.
What's step 2?
Nice.
Yeah. And I think that's confusing for a lot of people because you go to therapy and then you get out and you're like, or you're still going to therapy and you're like, but now what do I do with that information? What have I've processed, but now what do I do? Because I still feel all, some of these things that are lagging on. And so the Survive Workbook is kind of step 2 to that. And we have some, I'm so excited. I've also created 30 tips to help you in your healing journey, move forward in your healing journey. And they're little flashcards. And all of this is launching in January 2025. So I'm so excited. And so we haven't gone live on our webpage, but it will be survivedworkbook.com.
Survived with a D, survivedworkbook.com.
Yep, survivedworkbook.com. Okay. And so I'm so excited. My goal is to touch 1 million lives, and to help 1 million people just feel a little bit better, a little bit brighter, a little bit more clear on how to just be happy and be healthy and to heal. So let's go 2025. I'm so excited.
I'm ready for the new year.
Oh, me too. Let's say goodbye to 2024. Start out with a bang 2025.
What are you doing New Year's Eve?
I don't know.
It's my birthday.
Oh, so you'll be really partying.
Yes, party.
What are you doing New Year's Eve? Maybe it's trip time.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe it's get out of town time. Yeah.
Sure.
So so that's where we are, and I think I want to end by, I need people to know how amazing my daughter is, and just how strong she is. She is the most phenomenal human on this planet. And all of my kids, what they have survived, and my husband, my family, just in general, I just need them to know how much I love them, and just we did this. We survived this together, and each one of them is the most incredible human. And I am so thankful that I get to be their mom. I'm so thankful that I get to be her mom. I was made to be her mom, and I was made to have her back in my life. And so she is the best mama, the best human, the strongest human that I know. And I'm so thankful that she survived. I'm so thankful.
I know.
That's amazing. You're a powerful, inspiring woman to so many people.
Thank you. I try.
Yeah, and I haven't met all your kids, but I have met Sarah. I've been around her. And what's your grandbaby's name?
Mila.
Yeah.
Mila Rose.
Oh, so
a name with that. How can you cannot go wrong.
Right.
So
thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, you guys.
Your story. I know it's hard. It's full of emotions, and there's trauma attached to it. But what you're doing, outside of this, and who you're becoming because of what you went through, is so empowering.
I feel like I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah,
Isn't it so crazy that I've talked about this so many times, but still, things like this happen, and they just you remember, and they're so traumatic that you still have emotion about it.
Oh, for sure.
And that's another thing. You feel like I felt kind of guilty. I felt like I would be healed in a year.
Oh.
Yeah. I'd be like, I am a badass and I'm going to be healed in a year, And then a year came and I was like, there is no time limit to healing. And so a year came and it was not okay still, know, but I think we're headed in the right direction, and my family is healthy, and everybody is alive and healthy and strong. And that is, family is everything. And that is what we live for every day.
Awesome.
So Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Amie. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
I feel like
Thank you for having
this
me.
has just been a very inspiring episode, and you're bringing awareness to sex trafficking, and it sounds like you have a lot of resources there, but also just talking about resilience and overcoming trauma and taking care of yourself and doing all those things. So if this episode resonated with you, we would love it if you'd be willing to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. For sure. That's a wrap. Keep grinding, keep growing, and always level up.